Kill Complacency, a podcast that inspires growth and intentionality and helps you overcome your greatest obstacles.
Okay, today my guest is my lovely daughter, Tirzah Hofmann, and I'm super excited to have her here because not only have I ran a lot of races with her, I've raised her, I've trained her, but she is intentional as they can be at age 18. I'm actually going to let her talk a little bit, but the big thing she just did is she just got back from Colombia, where she was there with YWAM, and she was there to serve Jesus and love on people. So Tirzah, I could talk more about you, but why don't you tell the listeners more about who Tirzah is?
Yeah, so like you said, I'm 18 years old. I'm someone who loves adventure. I love doing physical things, and I love Jesus. And do you want me to talk about anything?
Let's talk about, a few things that make you unique, which most people aren't homeschooled. So what's it mean to be homeschooled, Tirzah?
For us, it was pretty much literally just school at our house with my mom as a teacher. And we did a few years of what's called unschooling, where basically my mom would let us choose what we're passionate about, and then we would pursue schooling towards that. And so it was definitely different from public schooling in that there was a lot more freedom, but also my mom was very much, you're going to do the things that public school requires. But she gave us freedom to choose of how we wanted to direct that.
And my wife, Ginger, Tirzah's mother, is super disciplined, very thorough, lives with integrity, but she also loves to learn. And so it's really unique. I've got 3 kids out of the home now. What I'm seeing is my kids are out of the home, still love to learn. And I think that's unique. And I think it's because we homeschool. I know that you graduated early. Could you talk to the listeners about that? Why did you decide to graduate early? Why not drag it out till you were 18?
I was 16 years old, and I was looking at my high school credits, and I was looking at how much more I had to get done. And I've always, I've just wanted to go and adventure and do things. And so I was looking at things, and I was like, I think if I do school all summer, and if I do school extra hours, I think I can graduate high school at 16. And so I worked really hard towards that, and I did it. And yeah, mostly I was just ready to be done with school, and I saw that if I was disciplined, I could do it.
Weren't you doing school all the way up until graduation?
Yeah, literally on the day of my graduation, I had one last essay to write, and it was a 1,500-word essay. I had to cite sources, I had to do all the research, and it was MLA formatted, all of that. And I hadn't researched it at all. And my mom said, if you don't have that done by 1 p.m., you're not graduating today. And we had all the people invited and everything planned and all this. But that was, probably one of the fastest my brain's ever worked.
What did you learn through that, Tirzah, about making your mom, but more about your capability?
Yeah, I learned that I would have taken a week before to do that. But then when I realized this is either I get it done in 2 hours or I don't graduate, and that's humiliating. It was my brain just shifted into that gear. And then I was like, man, that was actually it's not that hard, actually.
So you graduated and you came to me for advice. What did I tell you to do as far as work?
Sure.
Once you graduated, do you remember what I talked about?
I left 2 weeks after I graduated. I went to Iowa.
Okay, let's talk about that.
So, at 16 in May, I graduated. I'd gotten my driver's license, I had gotten a car, and I was just ready to go. 2 weeks after I graduated, I went up to Iowa, and I lived there for 2 months at a camp, and I worked there. That was a really big growing experience, not being around family or anything. And then I came home. And then I went to Colorado for 2 weeks to go to a camp. And that really grew my relationship with the Lord. And then
What was it called?
Summit Ministries.
Summit Ministries.
It's like 5 hours of lectures a day for 12 days. You grow really deep relationships with people. And it really prioritizes relationships with the Lord, but also just learning about cultures and religions and things like that.
And it was a big contrast from her time at Hidden Acres, because Hidden Acres is a camp, but it's a very heavy outreach camp. And so she went from this heavy outreach, she was actually doing maintenance there,
And some counts.
to doing this Worldview Summit, which was like the best of the best Christian kids your age. So it was really kind of good because you had been pouring out and now you got fed.
Yeah. Yeah. So then I came in August 2024. And then I was like, what do I do next?
Yeah. So she asked me what to do. And I said, hey, I think that you got to bring your friends. And so there's a special place that she got a job. It's called Hoboken Coffee. Could you talk to the listeners, Tirzah, about what you learned from your first real job? Because I know you work for me your own. Like we've done everything. We've burned down houses infested with ghosts, to animal feces, cleaning out, alpaca shearing, demolition. You've done a lot.
Yeah.
But your first real job was at Hoboken. Talk to us about that and how that shaped you.
So my dad suggested Hoboken because he said, Tirzah, when I go in there early in the mornings, sometimes they're reading their Bibles. And he said, I think it would be a really good community for you and a really good place for you to have good examples and to grow. And I was like, I don't even like coffee. I don't want to let here. But he's like, just give it a try. So I gave it a try, and I did not really enjoy it at first, but he was right about the environment and the community there. It's a really special place. Just each person that works there loves Jesus and is pursuing a relationship with Jesus and is reaching out to other people as well. And so I got to be blessed by that and actually see for myself, probably for the first time, that I remember real joy in my circumstance. And that impacted me a lot. And then just learning more about the Holy Spirit. And I had been taught that stuff younger, but having people who I looked up to, not that I didn't look up to you guys, but it's just different.
Yes, your peers.
Yeah. Who were saying this stuff and who were passionate about this stuff and who were living it out. I was like, man, I want more of this. And then also just customer interaction. I learned to value people and to treat people with value and to smile when I didn't feel like smiling. So it was just a really good and growing and beautiful time.
I try to teach them all these things. So it's fun for me as a parent to see it go full circle where instead of having to try to incentivize them to use names, Tirzah's coming home and telling me everybody's names because it comes so naturally to her. For me, I think Hoboken's a big chapter of your life, Tirzah, because, and maybe you would have, but YWAM, you were exposed to YWAM.
Yeah.
And from your mom and I's perspective, that was very confirming. So could you talk to us about YWAM?
So I knew I wanted to work at Hoboken for at least a year, but I really didn't have a plan after that. And one of my coworkers there, she had done YWAM and she had staffed in Europe at a YWAM base. And she talked to me about it. And she's like, I think you should do this. I think it would be really good. And I just kept shutting her down. And I kept being like, no. But I kept asking her more about her experience with it. And the more she talked about it and the more I saw her love for it, I started to grow a love for it. But yeah, then at one point she was like, Tirzah, I know you don't really want to do this, but would you just pray about it? And then through a few months and through some things happening, I prayed about it. And the Lord really changed my heart to really desire it. And I really felt like he was calling me towards it.
Talk to me for a second about your YWAM savings account? Because how long before that had you started that
Oh, okay.
bowl?
Yeah. So when I was like 15, I can tend to be visionary, but like I'll get sudden ideas and I get really excited about it and then it dies down. But I got this really sudden idea of I'm going to be a missionary. And I'd had this idea before, but one day I was just like, yes, I'm going to do this. And I like looked up on Google, like, how can I be a missionary? And one of the things that came up for like teenagers was YWAM. And I literally clicked on their page. I looked at it for like less than a minute. And that was it. And then I was done looking at missionary stuff. And for whatever reason, it stuck with me. And I didn't really even know what it was, but I just took a big bowl and wrote YWAM on it. And I said, if you guys donate to this, then this money is going to go towards me going to YWAM. And that bowl stayed in my room for 2.5 years. And it had money in it, and I would put my change in it.
For tip money.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I think it only could have been the Lord that had me start that savings thing, because I told people I planned to, but I didn't really see myself actually doing YWAM. And I didn't really know what it was until.
How much was, when you pulled money out of that 3 years later, how much was in there?
Like $1,200.
$1,200. So it just goes to show you never know. Sometimes we start things and we don't understand why we're doing them, but there's probably usually a plan behind it, and we just need to stay consistent because every penny adds up.
Yeah.
And I remember she'd come back from Hoboken, and they would split their tips. Whatever they got, they would split them at the end of their shift. And some of her coworkers didn't care about the change. Tirzah always took the change, pennies or no pennies, and she'd always throw it in that.
Yeah. Yeah, because it really does add up, small things.
So I want to rewind just a little bit, because I think there's something that in our house we take for granted, and that was that you didn't just go to college. Why didn't you just go to college right away? Like, how did you come to that decision?
I think, like you're saying, it is a cultural thing in our world of do something different, don't do the norm. And so I honestly, there was a few times where I would have a slight passing consideration of college, but I didn't really have any desire to go to college. And I think it's probably just because of how we were growing up. And it's like, college is boring. Like, you're just going to spend all your money. You don't need to go to college. Do something different. Do something better with your life. And so for me, it wasn't even really like a hard consideration not to go to college.
It is interesting, but she actually got denied because she was too young. So again, we don't always understand the way the Lord works. But had you gone, you never would have went to Colombia, joined YWAM, all that. Because it was only after you got not kicked out, but disallowed.
And that whole thing was interesting because I had thought about, my coworker was trying to convince me in January of 2025 to do the year of backpacking school with YWAM. And I thought about it, but I was too scared. And I was like, it's too scary. And so then after I denied that, I was like, I'm not going to do YWAM. So then I did look towards Bible college. And then when I was denied from that, I was like...
Okay, so now let's talk about YWAM. You go to YWAM, it's in Kentucky. You specifically went to the Kentucky base.
Yep.
Because they took 17-year-olds, right?
Yeah, and I think most bases do. But I thought at the time that it was just...
Let's go with that.
Yeah. No, I specifically... There were a few reasons why I went to the Kentucky base. And one reason was when I went in the YWAM website and I put in my information, I thought it was just for the general YWAM as a whole, because they have bases all around the world. But it was for the Louisville, Kentucky base. And so they started calling me. And something about the Louisville base is they are very
persistent. So what was your first week of training? What you go there? It's new to you. It's a new experience. What were your feelings? What did you notice the first week? How did you feel comforted in that you made a good decision?
I remember when I went to get picked up from the airport on the first day, first off, my plane had been delayed 6 hours and my second plane. And so I was already late. There were 2 people from YWAM that were coming to pick me up. And I was really apologetic to them. They were like, no, don't worry about it. They had really good attitudes. And then they were with me in the airport and my luggage was lost for 2 hours. And people at the airport had luggage lost too, and they were really upset. And I saw a lot of just nasty attitudes coming out. But the 2 people I was with were the most loving, joyful. They were just like, it's okay. They were encouraging other people. They were encouraging workers. They were just having a lot of joy in it. And I was like, okay. That was my very first impression of YWAM was like I could see Jesus in them just at that airport. And I was like, I think this is something good. And then, my first week there, I remember in worship, I had never seen so many young people on their knees crying. And that really, I was blown away by that. And, with the lectures, because YWAM is very focused on applying everything that you learned, the first 2 weeks, I felt so exhausted from trying to apply everything. And my brain did adjust. But my brain was used to taking in information, but it was so exhausting to actually try to apply everything that I was learning. So that was my first week. I loved it, but I was also so exhausted.
Like a fire hose.
Yeah. YWAM stands for Youth with a Mission.
And what is YWAM's motto? I don't know if motto is the right word, but focus on what? Your application.
To know God and to make God known.
To know God and make God known. And it's interesting because that was the big difference we noticed, because Tirzah's older brother, Ezekiel, actually went off to Bible college at the same time. But to Tirzah's point about application, she was getting to know God, but she was also making God known. Yeah. And it was a big difference between her phone calls home with her versus the one with Ezekiel. And nothing against where Ezekiel's at, but Tirzah was making God known, application so much more, and not just getting flooded with information all the time.
Yeah.
And now Zeke came back to college and they compared notes, and I think he's in a great place. But I think that for us as parents, we could see that application. We could see that you had community service or Christian service. What were you assigned to do there in Kentucky?
I was put on homeless ministry, and I had done homeless ministry back here a few times a year, but it was on Sunday morning, you just go and the homeless come in line and you just hand them food. This was we go out every week at 8:00 at night to downtown Louisville at the rough spots. Yeah, at the really rough spots. It's dark out. And we are just engaging with homeless people. They're not coming to us. We're going to them and we're engaging with them and sharing the gospel with them and praying with them and trying to speak truth to them. And so it was absolutely terrifying at first because of how different it was. But it was also I'm so grateful for it.
Talk to the listeners about some of the miracles you saw with homeless ministry.
Do you remember some stories that I would tell you?
As a parent, there's stories of they had a code for if it was a bad situation. There's one of those kinds where I think
yellow.
There was, it was yellow, but the gang activity or something. You told us another story at one point about the guy that was dying and you guys prayed over him and then you saw him 2 days later.
Yeah. There was stuff like that. And there was also, we saw some crazy stuff. Yeah, there was a guy who had overdosed and he would have died that night. But we were led to him. There was just a lot of seeing the Lord speak to us And then that, and also Bay, it impacted these people's lives. But yeah, the guy, he was being rushed off in the ambulance, and we were praying. We showed up, and this lady's crying. And we're like, what's going on? She's like, he's gonna die, he's gonna die. We're like, can we pray right now? She's like, he's gonna die. And we're praying right then. The ambulance rushes up. We leave. So a week later, I see her again, and I'm like, is he here? Is he? And she's looking at me. She's like, he's right here. And I get to meet him. He's doing great. And she told me, she was like, they said that he would have died that night. She was like, but somehow, he didn't. And we were like, we believe, that was the healing of Jesus. And then also, we had felt like we should pray for her. So we were praying over her as well. And I asked her what her experience was like. And she said that while he was in the hospital, she started to feel so overwhelmed, and she started to almost have a heart attack. And then she said all of a sudden she just felt it all leave, and she felt so much peace. And then we got to pray. We said, what can we pray for you guys now? And they said, pray that we'll get an apartment. And they got an apartment within 2 days. Yeah.
And that's a big deal for homeless.
Yeah.
So Tirzah, it seems to me from an outsider looking in, that YWAM was like faith on steroids for you. I think you're in the environment, you're seeing it lived out, but then you're applying it as well. How would you say that time at YWAM has impacted you spiritually?
I feel like there's so much that I would have said about my relationship with God, that I would have said that I knew God in, and I would have said I'd experienced God in. But YWAM led me to experience God in such a deeper way. And things about God that I knew about him and I could talk about, but I really got to see for myself. And so I think it made my relationship with God something that, before I would question, I would doubt, if I was in a different environment where I wasn't surrounded by believers, would I stay true to this? But YWAM, I experienced God in such deeper ways that my relationship with him grew to such a place where it's no, I know, I'm confident that I have a deep relationship with him. And I'm confident in that. And I'm confident in him, always providing, being there. That's not something I would have said before.
Yeah, that's really cool. Okay, so you did your time in Kentucky. Everything else said about Kentucky. She comes home for Christmas. It's interesting. Tirzah and Ezekiel both come back, and they both have a heart for the unsaved. And so they spent a lot of their Christmas break walking around Walmart, asking to pray for people, asking people if they could share the gospel with them, and simply just trying to love on people like Jesus loves them. And so it was fun for us to see our kids are growing off and growing into a relationship with Jesus. But the application was that it was real. And in their spare moments, that's what they wanted to do. But then, first of the year, you go down to Colombia. And I'm a little context here. Colombia is right next to Venezuela. And I believe they landed in Colombia the day after or 2 days after the U.S. went in there and disrupted the economy or disrupted all the evils there. And
our president also told the Colombian president, you're next. And so we go to Colombia all right, we'll see how this goes.
It really shows a lot of faith. The organization has a lot of faith when they don't cower to those things. A lot of other people, myself included, probably would have said, hey, there's too much going on down there right now. We need to not go. But YWAM said, no, we've committed to this. We've prayed about it. We're going to go. So you go to Colombia. Talk about your first week in Colombia.
First week in Colombia, I was really sick. And so most of my first week in Colombia, I was in bed. The rest of the team is going out on ministry, experiencing Colombia, and I was in bed sick. And I was like, this is so stupid. I honestly was like, I just want to go home. The team is doing absolutely great without me. Like, I don't even want to be here. And I felt physically awful. But yeah, then.
What did you learn through that time in bed?
So I was like, I wasn't angry at God. And I was just like, why is this happening? And I was sitting there and I was just sitting in my, like, pity party.
I love that. Sitting in my pity party.
And then there was one day where I felt like I was like reading my Bible at least. And I felt like the Lord was like, why are you, like, do you want your time to be like this? And I was like, no, make me better. And he's like, you can have joy and you can worship me even when you're not feeling well. And so then I was like, whoa, you're right. And so I made a complete attitude change for one, but also just a change of like, how can I help my team members while I'm in bed sick? And so I started like praying for the teams going out. I started just like trying to bless them and encourage them when they came and just having joy in it. And then I was like, man, I have so much time I can just spend with the Lord. And then like within the same day, later the day that I decided that I was going to do all that, I just got all better completely. But yeah, I guess I learned, like, sometimes I would be asking the Lord to heal me because, do you want to be healed? Because I wasn't acting like I did. Like, I was sitting there. And so I guess I learned just not to, like, waste even the sickness, not to waste it. Because it was a time that the Lord wanted to speak to me and he wanted me to reach out to others, and I was wasting it.
Okay, so talk to us about the kind of work you did in Colombia. What'd you guys do?
We did a lot of different types of ministries. We did like kids ministry, homeless ministry, park evangelism, street evangelism. We went to schools and taught. But our main ministry was what they call ending Bible poverty. And it was basically door-to-door Bible distribution. But we didn't want to do just like a stop and drop. And so we really focused on engaging with the people at the doors, like having Bible studies with them, praying with them, hearing their life stories, teaching them how to read the Bible, sharing the gospel, and then going back days or weeks later and meeting with them again, building relationship so that we weren't just saying, here's a Bible, and then leaving, but we were like helping equip them and then to hopefully share that with others around them too. But that was our main ministry.
What did a typical day look like for you guys?
So it changed depending on the week for like where we were at. But there was one week where we were getting up at 6 and you get up around 6 or 6:30. And from 6:30 to 7:30 was like work detail. And you would have breakfast and then like right at 7:30. And then you'd clean up the meals, like Colombians are very clean people. And so we would clean everything, you like triple mop everything at every meal. And then we would usually have an hour-long quiet time, just time with the Lord. And then we'd have team time where we're getting the vision for today or talking about how each other's doing or just like uniting more as a team. And then sometimes we had ministry in the morning, but usually we'd have a little bit of downtime and then lunch. And then all of the afternoon was some kind of ministry. And sometimes we'd be out late till 8 or 9, and have a late dinner. But yeah, that was like a typical day.
And you guys traveled. So where did you start in Colombia?
We started in Pereira, which is like a city, and we were at a YWAM base there on the 3rd story of this apartment building. with a bunch of other people, very crowded, very loud all the time. There's no place to have quiet, no place for alone time. And then after 4 weeks there, we went to Armenia, which was very different. We had a lot more space. It was in nature. It was quiet.
Yeah.
And even our ministry was different there.
Talk to us about that ministry at, what did you say it was?
Armenia.
Armenia.
Armenia was a lot more like church ministry. So we would go to churches. We did evangelism workshop classes for 3 days with a bunch of like students at this church. And then they went out with us and evangelized several times. We would go to churches and do sermons or teachings. We would teach youth groups. We would go to schools and teach. It was a lot more like teachings and sermons type things and less Bible distribution.
Okay.
Yeah.
So less outreach and more discipleship.
Yeah.
What did you feel like, did that affect you spiritually?
Which part?
Changing locations.
Oh, yeah. No, definitely. I think Pereira is a beautiful place, and I'm so grateful for the people there. But being in the city all the time, I was not used to. Going to Armenia where it was like quiet and peaceful, and you could go out and actually touch the grass. And just, yeah, I feel like it felt, this is probably wrong, but it felt easier to have an intimate alone time with the Lord. Just because you could actually get alone.
What is something you learned about yourself in Colombia?
That I'm a lot more selfish than I thought I was. Yeah, I'm a lot more selfish than I thought I was. And also, one thing, like on one side, I learned that like how needy I am. And on the other side, I learned like how much with the Lord I can pour into other people. And so it was like I had to come to this realization that I was this needy and then receive help from the Lord. But then I was blown away by, wow, the Lord can really use me. Yeah, and I also realized how independent I tend to be and how I don't like to receive help. But I had to get to a place of being like, no, I need help. And I got you.
Do you think it changed how you think about money, comfort, or success at all?
Being in Colombia?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we take so much for granted here. And
Like bottled water.
yeah, toilet paper, hot water, toilet seats, dryers, like good food. There's so much that we take for granted. But then also, yeah, I just realized how like much I can be content with so little.
Yeah.
Like it was hard and it was like, oh man. But then I was like, I really don't need as much as I thought I did. And I feel like in America, we think we need so much. And we work for money because we think that it's what we need to make us comfortable. But like you can do with so little and still be very happy.
Yeah. Powerful. How do you think that your relationship with Jesus changed from maybe your time in Kentucky to your time in Colombia?
I think I thought that lecture phase in Kentucky was going to be what transformed me, and outreach phase in Colombia was going to be where I saw transformation with other people. But the time in Kentucky equipped me, and it equipped me to pour into other people, but it also equipped me to receive so much. And there was so much transformation that happened in Colombia. There was so much where I felt like I was getting poured into. And I think it just made my relationship with the Lord more real. Mm-hmm. And being at a place of, I'm not the one sitting here in classes listening to a teaching, I'm the one teaching. And I have to come up with a teaching in 20 minutes. And I'm like, I can't do this. God, give me the words. And then he'd give me the words. And I'm like, whoa, that was not me. And it just grew my dependency on his faithfulness and made me be like, I don't want to do things without the Lord. So, yeah, that's what Colombia did.
There's a lot of young people feel like they have to have their life figured out when they graduate high school. What advice would you give to them on this? Because you graduated, you did outreach camp, you did summit, you worked a job at a coffee shop. Yeah, you've done mission work, you went to school for training. Your next job, you're going to start working at McDonald's. What advice would you give to somebody who is concerned that they have to go to college and figure everything out, and have all the answers?
I think this is like the best time in your life to not have everything all figured out. And if you get everything all figured out right now, and then you go and live out this perfectly configured plan, 6 decades from now, you're going to look back and be like, man, I had those years right after high school, and I had those years in high school, or a few years after high school, to literally, like, my age, we have so much opportunity and so much chance to adventure. And so I think just don't stress about it. It might feel like it's everything you need to worry about right now, but later on, you're just going to regret it, trying to figure everything out.
So you think there's value in having freedom to go travel, do adventure, do mission work?
Yeah, very much. I think, like, especially traveling and doing outreach and pouring into other people or being a counselor to camp, it sets a foundation for, like, how are you expected to go from being in school and then going to college, doing more school, and then getting married, and now you have, and having kids, and now you have this spouse and these children, and it's two-way relationships, and so you're supposed to be pouring into, but all you've ever had is you've been being taught. And so now it's just a much more challenging, difficult thing. So I think there's a lot of value in, while you're still single, while you're still, like, don't have all this other stuff, embracing opportunities to pour into people and learning how to do that.
Okay, now do this for me. Talk to a person that is maybe motivated by this, and they think, man, I've always thought about doing mission work, ministry, but they don't know where to start. What advice would you give to that person?
Like, specifically mission work?
Yeah.
Yeah,
this type of thing, mission or ministry.
I think if it's something you feel like, this is where the Lord's leading me, talk to someone about it, process it, get other people's insights, other people's wisdom, and then talk to the Lord about it. And then if you really are like, I need to go forward with this, maybe you're scared, just do it. Do something. Get started on something. And there really are so many opportunities, but you also need to seek out those opportunities, and you need to seek out those things. But if it's what the Lord's calling you to, the best thing you can do is obey. And, like, He'll make a way. He'll always provide if it's what He's asking you to do. So stop hesitating. Stop letting fear keep you back.
So how do people make that decision? How do they approach decision-making regarding what God wants them to do versus what mom and dad want them to do, or what the world tells them to do?
First off, I would say get in the Word. We have some very clear instructions from the Bible of we're supposed to live our lives, what we're supposed to do, but also spend time daily with the Lord. Surround yourself with people who, like, are full of wisdom. And if you're spending time daily with the Lord, it's going to be a lot easier to hear His voice. Because, your ministry should only be from the overflow of your relationship with Jesus. It should never be your ministry is your whole thing, and your relationship with Jesus is, on the side. It should be you have such a tight relationship with the Lord that it just naturally flows out of you. And so
that's profound.
I would say, focus on the small things, the daily times with the Lord. and get in the Word and surround yourself with people who have wisdom.
Growing up in our family, what were some things you learned about faith, work, and living intentionally?
From a young age, hard work was very valued. And so I think hard work was something that you taught us really well at a young age. And don't be lazy, take responsibility and give it your all. And then with intentionality, I think our family has really focused more on that in the last few years. But yeah, I think just life, like without intentionality, it can be so, like intentionality in areas will breed intentionality in other areas. And then that will help create purpose in some ways. And life without purpose feels like really depressing.
It is drifty.
Yeah. Say what you're going to say.
It's like default causes you to lose track of time.
Ooh.
Default results in forgotten time. So
all results.
when you drift, that's what happens. You go to default.
So if my default is right when I wake up, I get on Instagram and watch reels.
That results in forgotten time.
That time is valuable.
Yeah, we never get it back.
Yeah, I did a teaching note for kids, and I was like, for some of you, it was like if you live to 80 and if you're 13 years old, I was like, you have 2 billion seconds left. And I'm like, if you're spending 4 hours a day on your phone, I don't remember what the numbers were, but I gave them all the numbers, and I'm like, the seconds are going like that. I'm like, if time is, if you think if it is money, you're going to choose how you spend that time, just like you didn't choose how you spend your money. And your 2 billion seconds are slowly ticking down.
The other way to think of it is if I wrote you a check for $86 or $87,000 every day, and I gave you that check, and you put it in your bank account, you never spend it, I give you that every day, I would do that for almost 32 years, and you would get to $1 billion. Be your first billion.
Wow.
And that sounds like so much, $87,000 every day. What could you do with that? That's how many seconds are in a day.
Wow.
We waste them. Let me wrap this up. I find my final 4. What is something you're doing right now that you think your future self will thank you for?
I mean, I just got a job at McDonald's.
You need some money.
Yeah, some money. It wouldn't be like my most favorite preferred job, but it's what it's going to be good for now. And I'm excited for that. And I think, like I was just talking about, like the daily little things of waking up early, doing a workout, or eating better, or spending time with Jesus, or stepping out of my comfort zone and asking if I could pray for someone, or stepping out and talking to a stranger. Like, I think those things that seem insignificant and seem like they're only going to impact today, my future self is going to be like, wow, thank you.
Partial. You're 18.
Yeah.
And I always ask this, I always tell people to go back to the 20-year-old self. But if you could go back, give advice to your 16-year-old self, what advice would you tell your 16-year-old Tirzah self?
My 16-year-old Tirzah self, I think I would say, don't make it all about yourself. Like, I had a lot of my life planned out, and I had this mask of, I'm doing some of this for the Lord, I'm doing this for these people, but a lot of it was just to satisfy what I wanted to do. And that it just created a wedge between my relationship with the Lord and my relationship with people who heard from the Lord, because I was like, nope, I know what God needs me to do, and I'm going to do it. But really, it was just me following what I wanted to do. And so I think I would just say, let go of your pride, let go of what you want, and be open and sensitive to where you're supposed to go, what you're supposed to do next.
What's a verse that has been meaningful to you this year?
Or Lamentations 3 says, I feel like it's a verse a lot of people say, but it says, the steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His compassions never fail. They're new every morning. Use your faithfulness. I don't think I really experienced seeing like they are new every morning and having to ask for grace every morning and having to be like, Lord, I know your mercies are new every morning, and I see that, like, I need to receive it. Embrace his faithfulness. Like, that is such a real thing, and that is such a real thing, like, from my heart. So I think I would say that. I think it's 3:23.
Okay. Last question. I know you love adventure. So, if on your drive home the day you die,
Yeah.
and this was the last recording we had of you,
Yeah.
what do you want the world to know?
This is going to sound pretty basic, but obeying Jesus is the best thing you can do. Whatever that means, that you, like, because, like, you can live a life that looks good and it looks like you're following God. And you can live a life serving in the church and doing all these things that in this category, it looks good. And people look at you and say, wow, they're really godly. But they might not know that maybe the Lord has asked you and called you to do something else. And so you're living this life offering these burnt sacrifices of your own that make you look good, but you're not obeying the Lord specifically. And so I think I would just be like, just obey. It might be painful right now, but it's the best thing you could do. And you don't want to, when you see the face of Jesus, you don't want to say, I wish I had given more away, because like you cannot outgive the Lord. So just obey, whatever that looks like.
Here's how do people follow? When you follow you, you're on social media.
No. Instagram. I think it's, do I say my username?
Yeah, what's your handle?
TurboJ27. And then my Facebook is just my name.
Tirzah Hofmann, one F, two N's. We're special.
Yep. Yeah, I don't have any other social media.
Thank you, Tirzah. It's been a fun interview.
Just wanted to thank you guys for listening to the end. In closing, I just wanted to add that if this message resonates with you, if it aligns with your values, and something in it today triggered something, then you can also look me up on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. We are really trying to help people live more intentional lives to kill the complacency with which they have subscribed to. I know there's many ways which I get sucked in all the time. So if this is beneficial, follow me there.